Something extraordinary is unfolding today, and if you dismiss it as just another ordinary astrological update, you may overlook one of the most remarkable celestial patterns to appear in centuries. This is not a dramatic headline designed to grab attention. It is a genuinely uncommon alignment that has not occurred in this exact form since the 1400s. Today, Monday, June 29th, the heavens bring together several powerful influences that converge within the same span of hours, creating a turning point that few people recognize while it is happening. Mercury stations retrograde in Cancer, and only hours afterward, a full moon rises in Capricorn. Two major astrological milestones arrive side by side instead of standing alone. At the very same moment, the largest planet in our solar system occupies the strongest degree available to it, completing an arrangement whose combined influence is far greater than the sum of its individual parts. That is why this day carries unusual weight. Yet the most important piece of this story is being overlooked. This is not simply another Mercury retrograde, nor is it merely another full moon lighting the night sky. Hidden within today's celestial landscape are three profound karmic revelations, each connected to patterns that have been quietly unfolding in your life for many months. Once those truths become visible, your perspective changes permanently, because awareness has a way of making it impossible to return to old illusions. Perhaps you have recently awakened with a heaviness that you could not explain, as though an invisible burden has settled across your heart or your shoulders without warning. If that feeling has been following you, do not dismiss it as random. There is a very specific reason for it, and later we will uncover why that emotional pressure has been building beneath the surface. Before we reach that point, however, it is essential to understand the sequence of events that has brought you here. The energetic atmosphere surrounding this weekend is unlike the rhythm of ordinary days. As evening arrives today, the tension reaches a threshold where something within your current reality can no longer remain exactly as it has been. A release becomes inevitable because the pressure has been accumulating for far longer than most people realize. Many assume that astrological events appear suddenly, as though the universe flips a switch without warning. The truth is far more intricate. Throughout the month of June, layer after layer of your emotional defenses has been quietly dismantled. The process was gradual enough that it could easily escape your attention. Yet if you pause and revisit the past several weeks, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The first shift began on June 1st, when Mercury entered the deeply emotional waters of Cancer. Your thinking gradually moved away from detached analysis and into a landscape ruled by memory, feeling, intuition, and personal history. Conversations no longer felt casual. Words seemed heavier, carrying emotional significance that had previously remained hidden. Memories surfaced unexpectedly. Faces you believed you had forgotten returned without invitation. Moments from years ago replayed with surprising clarity. Even older versions of yourself seemed to step back into your awareness, asking to be acknowledged instead of abandoned. Then another significant threshold arrived on June 19th, when Chiron, known as the wounded healer, departed Aries and entered Taurus for the first time since 1984. This marked a generational transition rather than an ordinary planetary movement. It invited deeply rooted physical and emotional wounds to emerge from places where they had remained buried for years. Questions surrounding personal value, the relationship with the body, financial stability, and the need for lasting security began rising toward conscious awareness. Some people noticed unusual physical sensations that seemed disconnected from injury. Others experienced exhaustion that could not be explained by a lack of rest. It felt as though the body itself had begun speaking a language the mind could no longer ignore. Then the summer solstice arrived on June 21st, filling the collective atmosphere with Cancer energy, centered around home, ancestry, family, emotional belonging, and the forgotten needs of the inner child. old emotional foundations became impossible to overlook because the light of the solstice illuminated places within the heart that had remained hidden in shadow. Yesterday introduced yet another shift when Mars entered Gemini, igniting communication with urgency and intensity. Suddenly, conversations accelerated. Decisions demanded immediate action. Thoughts raced ahead. People felt compelled to speak faster, move faster, and respond without hesitation. Yet that momentum immediately encountered resistance because today Mercury stations retrograde. The very planet governing communication, perception, and mental processing applies the brakes at precisely the moment Mars urges relentless acceleration. The result is not simple confusion. It resembles emotional whiplash. It is as though the universe places both hands upon your shoulders and insists that before taking another step into the future, you must first face what has remained unfinished behind you. Every strange emotion that surfaced this month, every unexpected memory that interrupted your day, every conversation that carried unusual emotional weight, every unresolved feeling that refused to disappear, each experience has been guiding you toward this exact moment. None of it appeared by accident. Everything has served as preparation for what unfolds today. This brings us to the full moon itself, because it is unlike the dramatic lunar events many people imagine. Today's lunation is classified as a micro-moon, meaning the moon reaches its greatest distance from Earth. Visually, it appears smaller, softer, and less spectacular than many other full moons. Ironically, that quieter appearance is precisely what gives it unusual influence. People often expect major transformation to arrive with obvious emotional explosions, dramatic endings, or unmistakable external events. They wait for fireworks in the sky before believing that change has begun. A micro-moon does not operate through spectacle. Instead, its influence works quietly beneath conscious awareness, altering the deeper structures that support everyday life. These changes often remain invisible while they are occurring, revealing themselves only after weeks or even months have passed. Imagine a towering building collapsing during a violent earthquake. Everyone witnesses the destruction because it unfolds in a single, unforgettable moment. Now imagine a tiny fracture hidden within the building's foundation, slowly expanding year after year without attracting attention. Eventually, that unnoticed weakness determines the building's fate long before anyone recognizes the danger. Today's full moon resembles that hidden fracture rather than the dramatic collapse. Its purpose is not to create immediate chaos, but to begin subtle structural transformation beneath the surface of your life. By the time those changes become visible, the deeper foundation will already have shifted, preparing the way for revelations that are only beginning to emerge. Have you noticed that some of the most powerful moments in life rarely announce themselves with dramatic fanfare? They often arrive quietly, disguised as emotions you cannot explain, memories you never expected to revisit, or a feeling that something beneath the surface of your life has begun to rearrange itself. That is the atmosphere surrounding today's sky. Although this full moon is widely known as the strawberry moon, a name rooted in indigenous North American traditions that honored the short season when wild strawberries reached their peak, its gentle title should not be mistaken for gentle energy. The moon is shining through Capricorn, a sign that values honesty over comfort, responsibility over avoidance, and lasting growth over temporary reassurance. Capricorn has little interest in protecting illusions. Instead, it asks you to face what is real, even when that reality challenges everything you believed about yourself. If the past several days have felt unusually heavy, you are not imagining it. Perhaps your body has been communicating before your thoughts could catch up. You may have noticed tension settling across your shoulders, pressure in your chest, tightness in your jaw, or a fatigue that refuses to disappear no matter how much you rest. Others may have experienced something less physical but equally undeniable. Forgotten memories may have surfaced without warning. A melody connected to another chapter of your life may have replayed in your mind for no obvious reason. Someone you have not thought about for years may have appeared vividly in a dream, leaving you with emotions that lingered long after you woke. Some people have simply found themselves drifting into moments of profound stillness, staring into space with an inexplicable certainty that something important is changing beyond the reach of ordinary perception. None of these experiences should be dismissed automatically. They may reflect your awareness, responding to an unusually concentrated, energetic atmosphere before your rational mind can fully explain what it senses. Among the deeper lessons associated with today's Capricorn Full Moon is an invitation to question how you measure your own value. Many people spend years believing that love, acceptance, safety, or belonging must be earned through constant effort. Productivity becomes identity. Achievement becomes proof of worthiness. Rest begins to feel undeserved, while asking for help can trigger guilt instead of relief. These beliefs often develop gradually through family expectations, cultural messages, and personal experiences rather than conscious choice. Over time, they become invisible assumptions guiding everyday decisions. The full moon, standing opposite the sun in Cancer, creates a symbolic contrast between external responsibility and emotional nourishment. Cancer reminds us that every person carries an inner world requiring compassion, security, and care. Capricorn reminds us of structure, commitment, and accountability. When these energies oppose one another, they can expose areas where external performance has overshadowed genuine emotional well-being. You may begin recognizing moments when you agree to obligations despite inner exhaustion, continued carrying responsibilities that were never yours alone, or believed that being indispensable was the only path toward receiving appreciation. Such realizations are rarely comfortable, yet they often become the beginning of meaningful personal change. This process is intensified by the T-square involving Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees Aries. Symbolically, this configuration challenges the belief that one final accomplishment, one additional sacrifice, or one more display of strength will eventually produce lasting inner peace. It asks a difficult question. What if fulfillment has never depended upon reaching another milestone? What if the peace you have been pursuing externally has been waiting within you all along, hidden beneath years of striving and self-judgment? Recognizing that possibility may feel unsettling because it requires releasing patterns that once seemed necessary for survival. As this emotional landscape unfolds, Mercury also stations retrograde at 26 degrees Cancer within the Vedic lunar mansion known as Punarvasu, a name often translated as the return of the light. This symbolism suggests that looking backward is not always about repeating the past. Sometimes it is about recovering something valuable that was left behind. During this retrograde, memories, relationships, forgotten aspirations, or abandoned parts of your identity may return to your awareness, not necessarily to recreate old circumstances, but to offer another opportunity for understanding. Rather than viewing this period as punishment or regression, consider the possibility that reflection itself may become the doorway through which clarity returns. The story that appears to be taking you backward may actually be guiding you toward a forgotten part of yourself that has been waiting patiently to be recognized once again. There is a reason certain emotions refuse to disappear, no matter how hard you convince yourself they belong in the past. Somewhere along the way, you may have learned that expressing your deepest needs invited rejection, disappointment, or judgment, so you locked those feelings away and taught yourself to survive without giving them a voice. Now, the sky is beginning to unlock what has been hidden. As Mercury stations retrograde, experiences you believed were permanently behind you may unexpectedly reappear. Former relationships, friendships that faded away, memories long buried beneath everyday life, and familiar family patterns can all return to your awareness. Your first instinct may be to wonder why the universe seems to be repeating old chapters that you believed had already ended. It is easy to mistake this process for moving backward, yet something much more meaningful is taking place. You are not being returned to the same place. You are being invited beneath the surface of what you thought you had already understood. The Sabian symbol connected to the precise degree where Mercury begins. Its retrograde describes a violent storm sweeping through a canyon filled with expensive homes. The imagery is striking because those elegant houses can be understood as the carefully constructed psychological structures you have spent years building. They represent the identities you learned to present to the world, the emotional walls designed to keep painful experiences sealed away, and the protective strategies that once helped you survive. The storm represents something entirely different. It symbolizes the overwhelming force of emotions that have remained suppressed for too long and can no longer be contained. No amount of external success, careful planning, intellectual analysis, or polished appearance can prevent that emotional weather from arriving. It reaches places that logic cannot protect. The only path available is not avoidance, but willingness. The healing begins only when you allow yourself to experience what you have spent years trying not to feel. Mercury retrograde, moving through a water sign, carries a very different quality from the popular stereotypes surrounding this transit. While people often focus on delayed travel, technology problems, or communication mishaps, the deeper influence unfolds inside the emotional landscape. Conversations suddenly seem filled with hidden meaning. Ordinary messages appear layered with unspoken emotion. A simple tone of voice can awaken memories you believed had long since disappeared. Small events produce unexpectedly powerful reactions. Rather than viewing these moments as unfortunate interruptions, consider them signals pointing toward unfinished emotional work. Every trigger highlights an area where unresolved feelings continue influencing present-day choices without your conscious awareness. They reveal where the younger version of yourself still responds from fear, while your adult self believes it is acting from reason. They expose the subtle ways survival patterns continue, directing decisions that no longer serve your growth. The deeper karmic lesson emerging through this retrograde is impossible to ignore. Lasting transformation cannot rest upon experiences that have never truly been healed. The emotional residue stored beneath conscious awareness is not simply excess weight to be discarded. It contains the very wisdom needed for your next stage of development. Returning to those memories is not about reliving suffering for its own sake. It is about listening carefully to what those experiences still have to teach. It is about recognizing the version of yourself that endured difficult circumstances without receiving the compassion or understanding that was needed at the time. That younger self does not require criticism for how it survived. It deserves kindness, patience, and the reassurance that it is finally safe enough to be seen without judgment. One of the most remarkable aspects of this cycle is that Mercury remains within Punarvasu from June 29th through July 23rd. The entire retrograde unfolds inside this Vedic lunar mansion, whose symbolism centers on the return of the light. That detail changes the meaning of the entire transit. Rather than describing punishment or endless repetition, it speaks of restoration. Something valuable that was abandoned, forgotten, or taken from you is asking to be reclaimed. The universe is not forcing you backward simply to reopen old wounds. Instead, it is slowing your progress because there is something essential waiting behind you that belongs in your future. Until you recover it, the next chapter cannot begin in its fullest form. When familiar emotions return during this period, resist the urge to escape them, silence them, or dismiss them as simple nostalgia. Remain present with what arises. Each feeling carries information. Every memory contains a message. Together they hold the understanding that prepares you for everything waiting beyond this retrograde. As those revelations deepen, the full moon introduces another challenge that is even more confronting. Its purpose extends far beyond bringing hidden matters into the light. It reveals which parts of your life have been supported by beliefs that cannot continue. Structures that appeared solid may suddenly feel unstable because they were built upon expectations that never truly reflected your authentic self. You may begin questioning a career chosen primarily for approval rather than genuine fulfillment. You may recognize a relationship sustained more by familiarity than by real emotional alignment. You may even discover that some of your strongest beliefs about yourself never originated within you at all, but were inherited through family expectations, cultural conditioning, or systems that rewarded shrinking your true identity instead of expressing it. This realization becomes even more significant because the full moon forms a T-square with the Saturn and Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees Aries. Saturn represents structure, responsibility, and the tangible framework of everyday life. Neptune dissolves boundaries, awakens imagination, and exposes illusions. Their meeting at the very first degree of the zodiac symbolizes the threshold of an entirely new cycle where identity begins taking shape from the beginning once again. As the full moon activates this configuration, pressure steadily increases until weaknesses hidden beneath appearances can no longer remain concealed. A professional path that seems successful outwardly but leaves you emotionally empty begins revealing its deeper truth. A partnership that appears complete from the outside while failing to nourish your spirit begins revealing where genuine connection has been missing. Even the public version of yourself that has worked tirelessly to meet everyone else's expectations may begin showing signs that it can no longer contain the authentic person waiting underneath. Those fractures are not appearing to destroy you. They are appearing because what is no longer aligned cannot support the future you are being asked to create, and the revelations unfolding now prepare the ground for what comes next. Before you allow fear to take over, there is one extraordinary detail in today's sky that changes the meaning of everything we have discussed. If you'll be listening closely, you may have noticed that every challenge revealed by this cosmic alignment is matched by an equally powerful source of support. That balance is not accidental. It is woven into the heavens themselves. Right now, Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system and the celestial symbol of wisdom, expansion, protection, and divine guidance, is positioned at 29 degrees Cancer. In traditional astrology, Cancer is the sign of Jupiter's exaltation, the place where its qualities are believed to operate with exceptional strength. Reaching the final degree of that exalted position creates an incredibly rare moment of concentrated potential. According to many Vedic astrologers, the combination of Mercury stationing retrograde within Punarvasu, while Jupiter occupies the final degree of its exaltation in Cancer, has not appeared in approximately 700 years. Whether you see this as symbolism, synchronicity, or sacred timing, the message remains the same. The sky is not leaving you unprotected while these deep emotional truths unfold. Instead, it surrounds the process with an extraordinary current of guidance, reminding you that even profound transformation can occur within the embrace of grace. This means that the emotions rising today should not automatically be interpreted as signs that something has gone terribly wrong. They may instead be evidence that something deeply authentic is trying to emerge. There is an enormous difference between collapse and release. Collapse leaves only emptiness. Release creates space for something stronger to grow. Jupiter's presence suggests that every difficult realization carries the potential to become a doorway instead of a dead end. The relationships that no longer fit, the ambitions that no longer inspire you, the identities that feel too small for the person you are becoming, these experiences are not appearing to punish you. They are appearing because your life is asking for greater alignment than it has known before. Even more remarkable is the timing. On June 30th, Jupiter leaves Cancer and enters Leo, opening an entirely different chapter centered on creativity, confidence, courageous self-expression, and visible expansion. Seen from that perspective, today becomes a bridge between two worlds. One chapter is ending with deep reflection, emotional honesty, and inner healing. Another is preparing to begin with renewed purpose and authentic expression. Before your outer reality can expand, your inner foundation must become strong enough to support it. That is why today feels so significant. It represents the final breath before forward movement begins. So how should you work with energy like this instead of becoming overwhelmed by it? The first step is surprisingly simple. Slow down. Mercury has only just stationed retrograde, and the emotional intensity of the Capricorn full moon can easily magnify reactions before clarity has fully arrived. Give yourself time to observe before making irreversible decisions. Journal your thoughts. Record your emotions. Notice recurring patterns. Allow the initial wave to settle before assuming it represents the complete picture. Sometimes wisdom arrives only after emotion has spoken first. The second invitation comes directly from Capricorn itself. Take an honest inventory of your life. Look at the goals you have been pursuing and ask yourself a question that requires complete sincerity. Which ambitions genuinely belong to you and which were inherited from someone else's expectations? There is tremendous freedom in recognizing that not every dream you have carried was actually yours to fulfill. Releasing an outdated objective is not failure. It is refinement. It allows your energy to move towards something that reflects your present self instead of a version of you that existed years ago. Next, practice the strength that Capricorn often expresses more powerfully than ambition itself. Boundaries. There is at least one commitment, expectation, obligation, or request that has quietly drained your energy for far too long. Giving yourself permission to step back from what no longer serves your well-being is not selfish. It is an act of self-respect. Every healthy boundary creates additional space for what truly deserves your attention. If circumstances allow, spend time outdoors before the day ends. Leave behind unnecessary distractions for a little while. Walk beneath the open sky without headphones, without constant notifications, and without feeling the need to solve every problem immediately. Capricorn is an earth sign, and reconnecting with the physical world can help steady the restless mental momentum stirred by Mars moving through Gemini. Let your breathing slow. Feel your feet against the ground. Sometimes the body understands stability long before the mind does. Above all, remember that today's astrology is not describing inevitable catastrophe. It describes recalibration. Throughout this journey, three essential lessons have emerged. Your value has never depended solely upon what you accomplish. The past still contains wisdom capable of shaping a healthier future. Anything built upon illusion eventually asks to be rebuilt upon truth. These lessons may feel demanding, but they are ultimately invitations into greater freedom rather than greater fear. Jupiter's remarkable placement reminds us that protection and expansion remain available even while difficult changes unfold. Mercury's retrograde within Punarvasu suggests that something meaningful can be recovered rather than permanently lost. The symbolic imagery connected with today's full moon points toward harmony, waiting beyond honest transformation. Together, these messages create a single theme. What is ending is making room for something more authentic to begin. If today's emotions surprise you, meet them with curiosity instead of resistance. If old memories return, listen before dismissing them. If your direction begins to change, trust that growth often begins with questions rather than immediate answers. Sometimes the greatest turning points in life do not arrive with certainty. They arrive with the courage to release what no longer reflects who you truly are, And perhaps that is the real invitation hidden within today's extraordinary sky. If this perspective resonated with you, consider subscribing for more astrology and spiritual insight. I would also love to hear what you experienced during today's celestial alignment, so feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Your story may encourage someone else who is walking through the very same transformation. Until our next journey together, take good care of yourself. Trust the unfolding process, and remember that every meaningful beginning is first born from the willingness to embrace change.